welcome to Amy's Book Nook. Sorry it's been a while. I started the channel when I was on furlough. I had since come off of furlough and now I'm back on again. I kept trying to find like the perfect thing to talk about or perfect thing to say, and I just kept shoulding. I affectionately call it shoulding all over myself. I should be reading this, I should be writing that, I should be thinking about this, and in the end I just found so overwhelming I didn't want to do anything. And but I did keep reading. It was advice from an old supervisor of mine. She talked about how she came back to do her PhD much later in life, and she felt she was able to because she never stopped reading. And that is something that I have taken on board as some really great advice. You don't know what's going to happen, but there's a kind of solace in books. And so I will tell you about some of the things I've been shoulding about as well as thinking about, and we'll see how we go. So I recently finished reading Summer by Ali Smith. I did read Spring in April as a way to sort of prep for it. I absolutely loved it. I will probably do a full video just on Summer because I think the quartet is incredible and I would absolutely recommend it. I think it's one of the most profound books I've ever read, but I think you have to like her style to really get into it. So it's not something I would say is for absolutely everyone, but I think that if you love her, you will love the quartet. So I highly recommend that. I also recently finished Sisters by Daisy Johnson. This has a lot of elements of the uncanny, and while it's considered contemporary fiction, I wonder if later on it might be put into thriller or horror, because there are a lot of really unsettling elements, and I would definitely put it in sort of psychological thriller veins, but I really enjoyed it. I think she plays on the notion of a haunted house without it being a cliche, which I think is difficult to do. And she has such a nuanced attention to women's lives and women's relationships with each other, sisters as well as mother-daughter relationship, and the ways in which a woman's body is a house, and I think it's phenomenal. I would absolutely recommend her. I read her collection of short stories, Fens, and was over the moon. So when I saw this coming out, I was very excited, and I was not disappointed. Now, some of the books that I should be reading, I wanted to read Summer Water over summer. I'm running out of time here, so this is probably next on the list. I've been wanting to read this little group of short stories from Jean Rhys. September's in the title. I'll probably try to get to that this month. Zadie Smith's 6 essays, Intimations. I saw this when it first came out, grabbed it, haven't read it yet, should be reading it, gonna try and read it soon. Burnt Sugar. I think it was on the long list. I saw it on a fresher fiction table at Waterstones, Cambridge, and I'm pretty sure it was longlisted for the Booker, a prize. It was shortlisted for a prize, and I was interested. I'll get to it. Deathless Girls, I've been really wanting to read something by this author, Kieran Millwood Hardgrave. Her recent book, The Mercies, has been really popular, but a colleague of mine recommended this one, and I was taken with the idea that it's a play on the women who, the female vampires that, of the traditional Dracula narrative. There are these like 3 crazy female vampires that try to seduce the Jonathan character. So I'm really curious to see how she plays with that. This one looked interesting. Somebody compared it to an Angela Carter. Had to get it. We'll see what happens. After the Flood, I just found this as I was having a mosey. Sometimes I just have a shelf mosey, and saw this. Looked like it might have a bit of fairy tale retelling as well as potentially some biblical narrative of the flood retelling, so I'm really curious to see what happens with that one. Discomfort of Evening. How can that not be on the list? It just won the Booker. Gotta read it. Really should have read it by now. Trying to not should myself. Emma Donoghue, Pull of Stars. This, I really like Emma Donoghue. Her collection, Kissing the Witch, was incredible. And then I read The Sealed Letter, or Sealed Envelope, Sealed Letter, and loved it. The Pull of Stars is set, is it the Spanish flu? Anyway, some sort of influenza epidemic in 1918. And it just feels timely, right? I mean, she has a book about a pandemic just before we're in lockdown, and I think that is fascinating, and I really want to read it, and I hopefully will get caught up in that world in the way that I did. Oh, The Wonder is her other historical fiction piece that I read and really, really loved. Michelle Roberts is a novelist who I adore, and I really think she's underrated. And I saw that she had another memoir piece called Negative Capability that came out a few months ago. I read her memoir, Paper Houses, and it's just one of those times where you just feel like, can we just be best friends, please? You seem incredible. And she is an author who I've studied quite extensively, and I was really excited when I saw this book. In fact, I was a little bit mad at myself for not knowing that it was already going to come out. Again, shoulding. I should have known, should have done, whatever. Should have read it by now because it's been on my shelf for ages, but I'm really looking forward to reading Michelle Roberts. The idea is that she actually got turned, she had submitted a manuscript and it got turned down, and this is her sort of reflection on that rejection letter, and it's called, the subtitle is A Diary of Surviving, and man, I feel like I can really use some assistance to get through. And again, the should of, I should really appreciate where I'm at because I'm in such a privileged position and yet still struggling a little bit. And again, that's one of the things that I really liked in Ali Smith's Summer is there's this character named Charlotte, and at one point she just she's quite active and is quite liberal in thinking, but at some point she just sort of locks herself in a room and just doesn't come out. She just can't come out. And I get that. I get that notion of just, can I just lock myself down, please, for a little bit, just to recover, just to process. Anyway, so that is my should list, as well as recent reads. Oh, and fantastic read by Tiffany Angus. Again, it's another one that is going to deserve its own read through. It's probably next to my bed somewhere because I've just finished it. It's called Threading the Labyrinth. It's a speculative fiction piece. It covers like 4 or 5 different time periods, and each sort of historical moment is so embodied. She does an incredible job. She clearly did a lot of research to get these historical periods right and the language within them right. But there's a garden that has some magical elements and a contemporary narrator who we see glimpses of and we get a sort of main arc for, and loved it. We'll absolutely be telling you all more about that a bit later on, but mostly I just wanted to rip off the band-aid and stop shooting my perfect first video in ages and just say hello. And I hope you all are reading, and I'd love to know what you're reading or what's on your should list. And yeah, I'll be on here hopefully again sooner rather than later. But I hope you have a wonderful day and happy reading.